Ronald Reagan called Richard Nixon because he was upset about a particular vote that was going on in the UN, and of course,
this is about China.
Did anybody know that Nixon was recording stuff? I mean, he had no shame. He said, "Listen, I want it all." So he had a special device on his desk, a button that he could push. He recorded every single conversation.
Alexander Butterfield, I think, was the only guy in the White House who knew that they were taping, because he was the guy who released that information to the Watergate hearing committees, much to everyone's amazement.
Right. In fact, there's the thing in the Wall Street Journal every week. They have it called the Butterfield Award, which is somebody going, "What?
Really?
Well, now, is this bad? Huh? Wait a minute. Wait, hang on a second. What's going on?"
You should be able to win a lot of trivia contests with
Butterfield.
Butterfield.
Nixon and Reagan talking about the African countries after the UN vote.
And last night, I tell you, to watch that thing on television, and I did. Yeah. To see those monkeys from those African countries. Damn them, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes.
Well, and then the tail wags the dog there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The tail wags the dog.
Do you think, so Nixon, obviously, he's even said horrible things on there, knowing he was being taped.
That's right, because he was an honest racist, and Reagan was a closet racist. That's what we're finding out. This is fascinating to the degree to which this is indicative of something that they say is coming into the fore with President Trump right now. He seems to be willing to be a little more daring racist in public, whereas these guys at least knew enough to keep it quiet. Now, I think Ronald Reagan was smart enough to know that he could never say these kinds of things and assume that this wasn't being recorded. And so I'm sure that if he was alive, and I'm sure his family is mortified for him to be talking this way. But it's of a piece with Nixon. There's the reason we're even getting this information. The guy who ran the Nixon Presidential Library from 2007 to 2011 was aware of this tape.
Yeah.
But when it was released in 2000, they decided to protect Reagan's legacy.
They sort of hide it for a while, and then at some point, enough years have passed.
Yes.
So now we're going to release it.
He was, I think he was still alive at that point. And so then this guy then said, okay, now I think that this needs to be released. And so the question is this an indication of the continuing underlying racism of some American presidents? And the suggestion seems to be yes, in that it might dictate foreign policy. Now, with the Reagan, we already know a lot about Nixon's stance towards things. Well, Reagan fought the turning of apartheid in South Africa. That might have something to do with it. He was really mad at the African countries because they voted to recognize what used to be called in Reagan's era, in my era growing up, as Red China over Taiwan, and that's what he was so mad at.
Yeah, he hated the communists.
And they said that the African nations were jubilant because they voted against the United States to allow China in, and that's what he was so mad about them and calling them monkeys still uncomfortable.
No fan of China.